Welcome to the Talk and Chatter experience powered by Gasoline Alley Harley Davidson. Today's guest is current GRM Motorsport racing driver, Nathan Herne. Welcome, mate.
Thanks for having me. Cheers.
Mate, no dramas at all. Thanks for taking the, what is it, about 2 hour trip?
2.5 hours.
2.5 hour trip?
No, it's all right. I'd do it. I was going to be doing it to Herne either way. So, got a few hours off work and head back home and go back to work. So,
Mate, what a year for you, eh?
it's been busy. Obviously, with the whole GRM stuff coming about in the S5000 last year and racing it this year, then doing double duties, it's been pretty big. As well as that, working and trying to make a living and save some money. It's been, it's a good challenge, but it's a good problem to have. I've only got really a 3-year period I've set myself to make it in racing. So I'm just going to give it one shot in the 3 years and see what we can do.
Who is Nathan Herne? What are you currently doing?
I'm 18 years old. I'm from a small town called Lismore, New South Wales, more specifically Warrella, which is just a suburb out of Lismore. I've been racing since I was 6 years old. After my dad had an accident, he couldn't race anymore. He decided to sign us up for racing. And last year I moved, GRM sort of picked me up to race for them. And I've been doing Trans Am and S5000 this year and double duties at most events since they're both under the ARG banner and racing 2 cars one weekend. So, it's been a good year. Just a normal young bloke trying to make it. There's a million other Nathan Hernes out there. I'm just trying to make myself the one that makes it.
Mate, the thing I like, we've worked together a few times now. The thing I appreciate so much is we mentioned it before the show, just work ethic. You just work so hard. Like, genuinely, not just the athlete of being a driver. You've got this massive work ethic. Where's that come from?
Yeah, probably my dad. And as we were talking about before, it's comparative probably to blokes my age and to my generation trying to make it in racing, and the blokes who are in, different categories that are below top tier. I'm working hard. You go back 2 generations to when they, balance full-time job, balance working their own race car and drove themselves. I'm sort of probably working the same, if not less than what they did. So I think, it's sort of come from my dad. He's come from a humble background. He's started from one truck and he's built it into the empire it is today and 80 trucks. And obviously, racing is a financial sport. I've been fortunate enough position with Dad. I've had enough money to go racing. I haven't had as much money as some to, get into motorsport and to go straight through the pathway of what's recommended and making it straight to the top. I've sort of had to divert and make my own path, and that's been a challenge, but it all makes it all sweeter, to be honest. Everything I've had so far in racing sort of been through both mine and my dad's efforts, and it's been pretty cool. It's good to do it through the way we have. It was only 2019, me and Dad were working on the car ourselves and set the car up ourselves, and come from Speedway where Dad raced for 25 years. We never set up a bitumen car, and in our second round we beat Aaron Seaton and Glenn Seaton and George and Andrew Mediki and all these big names who Dad watched growing up, racing on TV and racing Bathurst, and we managed to beat them on track, which is pretty cool. And now this year, of course, as motorsport goes, it's stepped up. We couldn't do it ourselves anymore. It's just too hard. So we've gone with Dream Racing Australia on the Trans Am, and GRM's just sort of come up out of nowhere and just, I've been honestly kissing the ass by fairy with that opportunity. So I've just got to take it with both hands and run.
When we were working together last year, there was no talk of any of that happening. How did the GRM thing come about?
COVID. So it's
thank goodness for COVID.
Yeah, actually, there was a number of different things. In 2019, Garry saw me and Dad. They were testing the S5000s for, I think, is the first time with the final finished product.
Yep.
James Golding, who's now a teammate, which is pretty cool. And Richie Stenaway were driving the car. And they had a TCR, I think, MOF, and there was one other TCR there that they were testing.
Yeah.
Gary came out and I was driving some laps around the track and just getting a feel for the car. And that was our second ever time testing it. So we'll just throwing different shocks and stuff like that at it.
And what car was this? This was the TA?
TA2,
yep.
So the Gulf Western car.
Your car?
The first one. And, so Gary came out and Dad's seen him watching it, so Dad's gone up and going to talk to him because obviously Dad's, grown up watching supercars and he knows Gary, obviously. And
he's a personality around the event.
Yeah, so he's gone up to Gary and said, what do you think of the Trans Ams? He's like, these real fucking race cars. Like, sorry to swear, but yeah, he was happy with it. So, and after that, Garry sort of kept an eye on us, and we talked a little bit, and then Adelaide in 2020, we went there, and we were talking to Garry. We introduced him. That was when Ta2 and Trans Am sort of had their split.
Yep.
And we were introducing them there, sort of the happy medium to bring the both parties together. And we were introducing them to all the people they need to know. And then after that, we had a drive shaft failure in race 1. I drove from the back to 3rd in race 2 and passed Garry's car in the last lap, which is good.
Yeah.
So they took notice of that. And then COVID hit, and we were doing the ARG Esports Series, which is all the F3 and TCR stuff. I went pretty good in that. One round at Spain, we had Oscar Piastri join. I was the only one who kept up with him and gave him a challenge. And Barry gave Dad a call and said, "Oh, look, he's quick in an open wheeler. He's obviously quick in the Ta2. Do you want to put him in S5000 for a test day?" And we done a test. I remember going out for the last session. I was absolutely rooted. My neck, the left side of my neck was all torn up, and I was just absolutely stuffed for the day. And I just said to myself, I've got one more chance to make an impression here, so I'll give it a red hot crack and send it. And got within half a second of golding on my first go, and a second clear of anyone else who tested. So it was cool to do that. I knew that it was either going to end up me spinning off into the grass or pulling the lap together, and I just hung on and done it. And then after that, COVID hit. Well, COVID was already a thing, but that was before second wave. Once the second wave hit, me and Dad took the car back home from Melbourne. We ran ourselves again at Townsville. Then we done Bathurst, and we done another event, QR actually with Ta2. But it was after Townsville, Barry and Garry got approached by the Everinghams to run a wildcard at Bathurst. So they were watching the Townsville Tin Tops right at that time. This is how Barry described it to me, and they're watching it, and they're just trying to figure out who we're going to put in the car. What are we going to do it? And they've talked to Garry and Barry talking, and Garry said, "Oh, we'll just put Dylan O'Keefe in the car, who's been driving with them for a while. He's been their trusty driver, and because James Gowan already had a seat." And they said, and Barry's like, "No, think about someone we've just previously met." And Gary's watching TV and saw my car come up, and it's like, "Yeah, okay, we'll put him in." And it was pretty cool, because we were coming back from that event, and I was talking to Dad and saying, "Well, look, how much is a sprint car to run for a year? Do we just go speedway and save a bit of money so I can race for longer?" For me, I don't care what I race as long as I race. I've grown up as a kid pushing matchbox cars around in dirt and having fun in dirt. I've always been paddock bashing and everything like that, so I've loved dirt my whole life, and this bitumen all started as a chance. So I honestly didn't think anything was going to happen after 2020, because I thought I put in enough hard work and performances for it to happen, and I wasn't really getting any signs. And then they called up Dad and said, "Oh, look, this is what we want to do. Are you interested in about the wildcard at Bathurst?" And Dad said, "Of course we are," and that was all good. And they wanted to film my reaction on a Zoom call and post it up, because it was if I reacted how I was meant to. So Dad was too excited and he let it slip to me. But he said, "Oh no, it's a wild card, as in they're starting a new Toyota 6 team.
Yep.
So they want you, James Golding, and this Tyler kid to drive Toyota 86s at Bathurst."
Oh, so nothing about the supercar.
Nothing about supercar. So when we done the call, Garry and Barry didn't mention the supercar either. They said, "Oh, we want to do a Bathurst wildcard with you two boys in the car and all this and talking it up." And I could see everyone was just looking at me like, "Why is he not reacting?" Because I was thinking it was 86. I was like, "Oh yeah, no, very good, very good." And then right at the end, they've said, "Right, boys, we'll organise the winter test in the supercar in a couple of weeks, so just get ready for that." And as soon as they said that, I was like, "Oh, like."
Yeah, this is real.
Yeah, I was shocked. And then they ended the call there. Then after that, I was talking to Dad, and he told me that it was in the supercar. Honestly, I didn't know the whole time. And then once he told me that, I was out for work for the day. I took the day off sick, because I didn't know what to do. I was bloody crying, laughing, vomiting, trying to go to sleep. Like, yeah, it was crazy.
It's a huge thing.
Yeah, I mean, it was the biggest thing of my life, really. And still to this day, I wish every person in the world got the opportunity to experience the emotions I did for that day. I felt like I was, on top of the world and the best thing since sliced bread, really. It was just cool to, finally think that all the work and all the time I could have given up and didn't was actually going to pay off one day. And I was keen as being to get into it.
Townsville must have changed some things. Like your phone probably lit up after Townsville. because you got so much media attention up in Townsville. The drive that you put on was...
Yeah, it was good.
I remember messaging you thinking, mate, you're a lunatic.
No, it's good because we didn't have the car set up right at all. So that's probably what made it look so good. And the car was sliding everywhere. And we didn't really bother too much with setup as, we didn't have our own seat in there to push us. So I was sort of just, having fun and enjoying motorsport. And that's what was so good about 2020. I stepped back from the competitiveness. Obviously, I still wanted to win. But since we're doing multi-class racing, I was just having fun and just driving. We managed to pick off a few Mark II cars, which is the Mustangs, which is pretty well like a supercar with more aero.
Well set up vehicle.
Yeah, set up, yeah. We managed to pick a few of them off. Granted, they were gentleman drivers in them, but yeah, they had a bit of fun and skidded around. And we got some TV coverage, which is good. I mean, it was cool to just get back into a race car, and I think that was the most grateful I was to actually hop into a race car because it was so long since I actually did drive, and to do it at Townsville and on a street circuit and in the car where it was just me and Dad running it and one of the boys, Frank, from Dream Racing. It was awesome fun. Mate,
it was cool. Very, very cool to watch. So what did it all start? Like karts? You did karts obviously through, you're a Formula 4 champion, first state champion, obviously 2 states.
Yeah.
What was the bitumen thing at the start? Obviously karts, I'm guessing.
Yeah, so karting. So Dad always raced speedway. He had an accident in 2008 in an off-road buggy, which broke his back, so disintegrated 3 vertebrae. I think it was his C5 to C7.
Yeah,
right. So he's fused from his neck all the way down.
Not in a track, like he was out.
No. Oh, it was on a... I'm not too sure about off-road buggies, but it was in like the off-road buggy races. So like...
Oh, yeah.
What do you call it? It was down in Melbourne. But yeah, it was just the off-road ones, and they've like rally, but in the buggies.
Yeah,
so,
off-road thing.
Yeah. So he sort of kept that. Well, we don't talk about that much, obviously, but he doesn't care about talking about it. But it's just not something we really bring up.
That's a part of life.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah. So they were going, I think, 240 k's an hour, and Dad was the navigator. And they're coming into a little dry creek crossing. And then as they're coming into it, old mate's just hit the brakes just before it, and it's just nosedived and pitched into the embankment on the other side and launched it up, and broke his back and put him in hospital. So nearly killed him, but it's motorsport, and it was stupid enough to sign us up about 4 or 5 months later after he recovered.
So that was how, literally then.
Yeah. So the whole pathway was already pre-planned. Sort of go wait for Dad to finish his race, and he always wanted all 3 of his kids to pit crew on one of his race cars. I was always too young, so he's waiting for me to turn 12. I was 6 at the time, so he had a little bit longer. Yeah. And my whole pathway is just going to be wait till I get old enough, go junior sedans, then go productions and wingless and modifieds or sprint cars or wherever I want to go from there. And that was sort of what we had planned. Then go-karts started because Dad obviously couldn't race, so he didn't want us sitting around, and I fell in love with karting from the first test day I done. We went to Lismore Come and Try Day, and I only could do laps by myself, but after that I was just in love with it. And Dad said you have to give up. I also love riding motorbikes, and Dad said you have to give up bikes if you want to race karts. So sold me PV50 straight away, and she was gone, and we got a little one of those old buggies with a little roll cage over it, like the little bar. And
like a Honda Odyssey.
Yeah, them little things, and I was just cruising around that every day and loved it. So. Yeah, and then that's where my racing addiction started, really. So I started racing when I was 6. I wasn't really allowed to till you 7, but we knew the guys at the club, so they let me do a few races. So
nice.
And then ever since then, I've done soccer and different stuff, but I gave them up pretty quickly to go racing.
It's once you're in, it's hard to get out, eh?
Exactly, and it's. Looking back on it, I wish Dad got me into like tennis or something like that, where there's a lot of profit. Racing, there's not much profit. A lot of money burnt, but it's such a good sport, and it's so good. Me and Dad have such a good relationship, and as well my whole family, I guess, because we spent so many days on the road together. If you didn't get along, you wouldn't be on the road for so long together. So it's awesome fun, and probably karting was the best days of my life, really.
Really,
so far, it's just because it was so much more fun, and you could enjoy it. Getting into stuff we're doing now, it's real competitive, and there's so much pressure. Even though everyone tells me not to worry about it, it's I know one little slip up can ruin my career, really, because you're on such a knife edge. You got to perform every single time. If you go crap at one event and you go off on camera or something like that, then you can live up to a reputation. So
it must be hard, mate, to that deep breath, like something goes wrong, that moment of all right, I can't show this.
Yeah.
I've got to go behind closed doors to show what's really going on here.
Yeah. And that
must be hard sometimes.
Hardest thing for me because I'll admit I've always been fiery as a kid growing up.
Competitor.
Exactly.
People that compete, that's a hard thing to turn off.
Exactly. You can always I can't remember who it was. I think it was from go-karts back in the day. I think it might be John Dwyer who helped us when I was real young.
Yep.
He always said to me, if you can take the fire out of you, but you can't put the fire in someone. So so I've been trying to work on that. I still let the emotions get the best of me sometimes, but I mean, it still means I have a passion for it, I guess. So yeah.
What made you get into the Ta2 car? Like, obviously that cost is one thing, but what made you get into that path at that time?
Yeah, mainly cost. We sort of got into a crossroads. We were racing Formula Ford, and we could have done one more year in that to win a national series. We had a wretched year in 2018 where just anything that could have gone wrong went wrong for us. We had a bent roll bar in one of the qualifying sessions that we didn't find until race 3, and in one of them things they're so light, their corner weights are so sensitive. So it was like having preload in the right rear suspension.
Yep. So nothing would have felt good the whole weekend.
No, it was a bad weekend, but the whole season was really sort of like that. Just little things just kept going wrong and ruined it for us. But we got stuck at a crossroads. We saw Ta2 mucking around, and one of my good mates, Dewey Jones, he actually done the media for Formula Ford and for Ta2. So when he introduced us to Cam Stennell and Peter Robinson, and then Aaron Seaton got into it, and then George Medicki got into it, and that's when we knew we had to get into it. Because we couldn't afford to do Super 2. We'd done test day with Brad Jones Racing, and he said, yeah, you got the stuff, you're all good, you can do it. Here's the invoice, and you can do a year with us. And we said, oh, that's a bit steep. And we just couldn't afford to do it that pathway. So we just said, oh, look, I'd rather race for 10 years in a lower category than risk it for the biscuit in 2 years, to be honest. So it's such a financial sport, and it can break you so much. And last thing I want to do is, I've always been involved in the finances of my racing. Dad's not scared to share how much it's costing with me. Yep. And I guess that's given me another appreciation of how much it is and how much of a risk Dad's taken to me. But you hear about some other kids who, their parents are spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars to get them to where they are, and fair enough. Everyone loves to see their kids succeed in life, and they're giving them a leg up. But for Dad, it wasn't feasible to do that. It's a very expensive sport, as I've said probably 20 times already. But we just thought, we'd rather race for a longer period of time and just see where that takes us, and try and forge our own pathway. When I first joined Ta2, I thought I was the bee's knees, and then looking back on it now, it was sort of just redneck racing, like the street stocks over in NASCAR. So, but no, I'm glad I've done it. And to be honest, it's probably been good for me to do that racing off camera. Yep. There's a few silly mistakes I made throughout the year that if it was on camera, I would have been slapped in the wrist for, but. With driving style wise, but it was good, and it's taught me so much. Racing against George and Andrew Medicki, they're both very aggressive drivers. They'll, if they're trying to get past you and you're not giving them much room, they'll give you a door handle to say, move over. Yep. Aaron Seaton, he's a polar opposite. He's quite generous, and he'll try not to mark his car at all costs. Yep. So it's good to muck around with those different types of drivers, and they've both been through it all before. They're both very experienced. And Ta2, it was full of older blokes who've made themselves in business and just want to go racing a cool race car. So it's good for a 16-year-old to be surrounded by all them. It's given me I feel like I've matured a lot more than what I would have if I just stayed with my age group and went through Super 2 and stuff like that.
Just gradually went through. And
So, and mucking around, with all the older blokes and getting along with them, and I'm sort of like a 40-year-old in an 18-year-old body. So it's
a good way to say it, eh?
Yeah.
But it's true.
Yeah, exactly. So it's it's definitely helped me tenfolds over for my racing career so far.
You look at the name Medicki, like racing in Bathurst, like done lots of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Long career.
Yeah.
So it's pretty and Seaton obviously as well. It's pretty a lot of history there.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I was so big, especially for Dad, because Dad's watched them on TV all the time, and for me, I was sort of beyond that generation. I was behind them. Yep. It wasn't until obviously I knew who Glenn Seaton was, but it wasn't until I met him that I realised how big of a deal he is. But to me, I get along good with the Sedans. I get along good with the Medikis. At the start, the Mediki-Herne relationship was a bit patchy. We got into each other a few times, and yeah, it was good fun though.
That's racing, hey?
you need rivalry, otherwise it's boring. If everyone was vanilla and shook hands after every race, it'd be boring. So, George was always the one bloke I had to beat. It doesn't matter if we finished last and second last. I was only happy if I beat him. And with Glenn and Aaron, you sort of see him just as another competitor now, and we have that respect, me and Aaron, that we can, shake hands after every race. We are a bit vanilla in our relationship, but we've both seen each other come so far. And not only just as a driver, as a mechanic and crew chief and stuff like that. Aaron works for his Super 2 team, Matt Stone, and I try and work for GRM when I can. So I go down to Melbourne a week before every race and work with them. I work up in Brisbane with Ta2 on the cars just to learn the cars a bit more, and obviously work for my dad as well. So they're all flexible jobs, obviously, which is good. So I can work around whatever one I want to do. Yep. And but I've got so much respect for Aaron. He's started to push the Ta2s as far as they can be pushed, and we're not just a driver who comes in and speaks to an engineer. Neither of us have engineers. He has his dad. I have Cam Fisher and Frank. Cam Fisher worked at NASCAR back in the day, and Kim James in the V8 Utes, and he's been around the block a fair few times. But we're trying to find pace that Cito's got. He's obviously very experienced and knows these cars back to front. It's just pushing us. We have to give so much feedback to the guys to say exactly what changes need, and we need to know the cars inside out so we can catch up to each other. Because one wrong setup change and we're back with the rest of them.
How much setup is there in a Ta2 car?
Not much. There wasn't much at the start. Now we're starting to get into the parts where every little bit counts. Obviously, you just got all the normal geometry and stuff like that. Like rear trailing arms, roll centers, and different things like that. In front end, you got caster, Ackerman, camber, toe angles. So just a general setup, really. The biggest thing is shocks. Glenn is Australia's shock guru. So we got a shock set up by him until early this year, when we went to another bloke just to get that last edge to catch up to them. The shocks are the biggest things in them, which is good and bad. It's good that you have that little bit of freedom in the car, but it's also bad for the bloke who doesn't know anything about shocks. You have to sort of find someone who does, and it is quite costly to if someone had to come into Sirius now, it would cost them a fair bit more than what it did for us to get in and involved.
And figure it out.
Exactly, yeah. So
when you first jumped into that car, was it like, what you come from a Formula Ford, what was it like?
It was good. It was, because I'd done a few test days in the supercars beforehand. Yeah. I thought, I came in big ego thinking, I've driven a supercar, this thing should be easy, and I've hopped into it. I've come into turn 3 at QR, and I've hit the brakes, and bloody rear's just locked up and started sliding like that on me. I was like, holy Jesus, this thing's loose. And it was awesome fun. I think that was the biggest smile I had on my face, and it just felt like I was driving a NASCAR, and I've never driven one, but it felt like exactly what it would feel like. A big clunky gearbox, you could feel it go through every gear. Heaps of power. The tyres are just flexing everywhere, so the car's moving around a heap. And
big muscle car. Yeah,
exactly. It didn't feel like a race car. It felt like a muscle car where it's designed to go fast and straight line and not really break a turn. So yeah,
it would have been pretty cool. Yep. What about last year when you got your test? You went to Winton. What was that like getting in that car?
Very different. I felt like I was driving an oversized go-kart, really. It's they're so gripped and so engineered now, the supercars. They are just like driving a KZ. I've got a KZ I muck around Lismore Car Club in, and it's just the exact same. But I think the hardest thing for me to adjust was steering my hands, not my feet. In a Trans Am, if you want the car to rotate, you'll give it a bit of a blip, rotate it, and throttle out. Yep. In the supercar, you have to just use your hands, and it was such a different feeling. Coming on corner exit, you get to flat full throttle as soon as you can, and if you have to correct, you correct the steering wheel. In the Trans Am, if you try to get full throttle and you start to slide, you have to lift off and wait for the wheels to come back.
So very precise in the supercar.
Yeah, exactly. It's easy to get to within 4/10 of the limit of the car. It's the last bit that's real hard in them. So that's what separates, obviously, like the Scotty McLaughlins and the rest of them, is just being able to push that last bit out of it. And there's such an aero car to drive now. There's so many things that didn't make sense in my head because they were so aero dependent. And now I've driven the S5000, I think I'd have a bit more of an idea on how to drive them. And they're a very cool car, but they're also very setup dependent. You can't really drive the car any harder than what you got. With a Trans Am, you can have a car set up not perfect, and you can still hustle it to the front. In a supercar, me, James Moffat, and Tyler done 2 sessions each at the start of the day, and by the end of it, we were 0.03 separated, all 3 of us. Moff's done a fair few years in the supercar, and that was my second ever test day in it. So, yeah, it was different. Yeah.
And that's something you see on the TV and that as well, as when you see the team cars are so similar, there's nothing left, is there?
Yeah,
exactly. The car's driven to its peak and the driver's at that peak of that car.
Yeah, and you listen. I listen to Below the Bonnet a fair bit, and you hear Dave Reynolds talk all the time. You're absolutely cooked after you finish 10th, but when you finish first, you come out and you look fresh as a daisy, and it's because you're driving the car so hard, but the setup's just not there. And that's a bit of a shame, because you want to see the best driver in the day win, not the best setup car.
Yep.
And that's where the Trans Am's so good. That's why I love the Trans Am. There's been races where the car's just been set up nowhere near the pace, like Phillip Island race 2, when I dive bombed both Owen and Cito at the start and got in front of them and held them off for the whole race. And that's the sort of racing I love.
Proper racing.
Exactly. Where you just get out there, and if you can get to the front, you can hold them behind. You're not just a shot duck. And yeah, it was good fun.
When you're mentioning before about vanilla relationships in sport, do you feel, and this is something I see, do you feel that these days the characters are starting to come back into it? There's sort of been an era of just watered down where the media said you can only say this, this, and this. But there's people like David Reynolds, yourself, you speak your mind quite well, starting to come back through, where people actually tell them the truth and saying things that this is wrong with the car or this is what's going on. And there's not as much vanilla characters floating around. I think there's more characters coming back in.
Yeah, and it's
to a degree.
To a degree. Yeah, it's such a hard world, motorsport, that I think as you did say, everyone did go a bit vanilla, but it's all corporate. So you have to please all your sponsors and everything like that. And I've been obviously blessed with Valvoline, and through the GRM relationship we got them. But Valvoline, I talked to Peter Besgrove as the CEO with it, and he's the first one to say, like, don't be vanilla, just speak your mind, just say it. We don't care what you say, just go. He said we trust you enough not to say anything stupid, and yeah, it's cool to have that type of sponsor behind you. You get some who are, if you have a button undone, then you'll get in trouble and everything like that. So
that's a bit crooked.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, what is it?
No, but like that sort of stuff. That's the sort of thing. Hey, so
yeah. But no, it is good that we're starting to come back to it all, and you're still. Yeah, you're always going to have those characters who will speak their mind and get out there. They just got to be lucky that all their sponsors agree with it, and it's I don't know, it's a different world, motorsport, because you're not just a driver anymore. If you get to the front, obviously it helps to get sponsors, but they'd rather have someone who's great with the fans to sponsor than someone who's running at the front all the time. So you don't have to be just a good driver nowadays to make it. You have to be the perfect package, really, to make it. And that's what's been so hard about it all. And that's why I've been using, probably not a good word to use, but, GRM as a real good teaching tool and learning tool. James Moffat, he's been one of the biggest blokes I've looked to. He's sort of been like a big brother to me in motorsport, even though I've only known him since Winton Test, which was September, I think. He's just been there for me throughout everything, and there to teach me and tell me what to do and what not to do, and it's been good to have him. Obviously Barry and Garry, they're the ones who tell you what you're doing and what you're not doing right, and I think I'm pretty safe to say they're straight shooters. So if I'm doing something wrong, they'll tell me straight away, and it's good to have such a big network behind me, I guess, and to use that to my advantage, to learn, because my racing career started with me and Dad, and it still is me and Dad a lot. Dad sort of steps back out of the equation a little bit. He's still there to help, obviously, but now it's sort of fallen into my hands, and I'm just using Dad to help me as a coach and run some ideas off and some different decisions off. I still look after all my own sponsors, everything like that. I haven't got a manager or anything like most of my other competitors do. So me and Dad just run after sponsors and try and get the racing to happen.
It's such a crazy thing. Like, this is the time where the relationship traditionally with Dad and team, it's a hard time. It's so cool to hear you keep talking about it's you and your dad still.
Yeah, well, and you see that a lot. You get the motorsport dads who are there to look after their son and make sure everything's all good and get in the way a little bit.
Yep.
I think I'm very lucky to have Dad who's been through business before. He understands. You know, he's not there. He's not the one that the whole team's there for. He's just there to watch me and support me, I guess, and be that dad if I need it. So yeah, I've been pretty lucky with that. And Garry and Barry, they get on good with him.
Yep.
So Garry and Barry, they don't muck around in the garage much. They're sort of there to keep an eye over things and make sure everything's running smoothly and talk to everyone and just manage it. And so they get on good with Dad, and they can go out back and talk to Dad in the motorhome and it's just a good escape network for them, really. Is Stuart. And yeah, it's I've been pretty lucky with every bit of my family so far. I haven't had anyone who's stepped out of line, and this, as I said before, you have to have a full package, and the full package isn't just the driver anymore; it's the whole family. My mum, she just reads a book the whole time, and when I'm on track, she might come out and watch 3 laps and go back to a book, and so it's good to. I'm glad I don't have a family that's too heavily involved, but they're also involved enough to care about what I do.
They care. Yeah, genuinely care.
Yeah.
Tell me about a S5000 car. Like, what is it? A Coyote motor?
Yeah, Coyote, yep.
What's the chassis? What's the details of those cars?
The chassis is a Ligier chassis, made in the US.
Yeah.
So based on F3. So the monocoque, so from the airbox, so the front engine to the front wing is all F3. And then all suspensions, wishbones, bodywork, engine, is all been designed in Australia. The wheels been done by Max's Wheels, who's Max Dumsney, who owns Hoosier.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Hoosier also made custom tyre for the S5000s.
Sprint car Max Dumsney.
Yeah. So cool. Max and Mitch and have been running around a heap with Trans Am and S5000 now. So it's been pretty cool. It's been a big reunion because obviously my dad raced speedway for so long and knew Max and Mitch and all them. So yeah, it's been cool to muck around with them boys and they love it. They're actually starting to enjoy the bitumen. You see a lot of speedway guys, they don't enjoy bitumen because they haven't got the big noise of V8s all the time. They're not just tin cans on wheels with a big engine strapped to them. Now that the ARG is coming into it, we got S5000, which is a carbon fibre box on wheels with an engine strapped to it, and the Trans Am, which is sort of like the speedway cars with a big engine and not much to it. So you see the speedway boys starting to come into it more and more, and they're starting to enjoy it. And I feel like I'm in the best spot available to drive both these cars. They're both amazing cars, and to go back to your question about the S5000s, they're the scariest car I've driven, to be honest.
Right.
Because they haven't got a heap of downforce, so you can't rely on the downforce, but they've got enough that you have to use it. So you see Joey Mawson, who won the championship, he's probably one of the best open-wheeler drivers Australia's produced in a long time, and he's mental, to be honest. He's mad. So
what makes him better?
Balls. Really.
Straight up.
Yeah, well, he just knows the car. So for me,
Yep.
I've never driven Aero. I've driven Trans Am, which is complete opposite.
Yep.
We probably produce a lift rather than downforce.
Yeah, the opposite.
Yeah. So, and it was so hard. Like I remember my first Phillip Island test. I came into hay shed and it was flat out through hay shed, and I've done it all day. Then all of a sudden, next session, the car's just looped on me. So I've come in, gone through the data, what it was, and the wind direction changed on me. So
wow,
you just got to be so switched on with everything, and you got to know about aero wash and wind direction and how hard the wind is blowing, and just predict what the car's going to do. For me, I need another test day to learn that. I'm going to every race meet and I'm just learning, which is good, but it's not great because if I go over the mark and learn too much and make a mistake and spin, then I've lost points in the championship.
So they're a real driver's car.
Yeah.
Real driver's car.
Yeah. So they're sort of like the old Indy cars and F1s where not much downforce, heaps of power, and they just have to drive it.
Yeah.
So at the slow speed tracks like Tasmania and Sandown.
Was it Simmons Plains or Baskerville?
Simmons Plains,
Simmons
sorry.
Plains,
yeah. So Simmons Plains and Sandown, I was quick.
Yep.
Sandown, we had the traction control stick on, so they have traction control on the wet because they were just too loose.
Yep.
So in the last race, I was pumped, I was ready to go, and the car was quick, and hopped in. I was behind Joey, and I've come onto the straight, and the engine's just cut. I was like, what's going on here? And it's just gone blah, 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 and taken off, and traction control got stuck on, so that was a bit annoying, and we got to the high speed tracks of Phillip Island and Sydney. Phillip Island was actually good, so I done test day before there, so I was comfortable with the track. I knew what everything was going to do. And
do you know what sort of lap speed you're doing there? What
lap times?
Yeah.
23s, at Phillip Island, I
Man.
think. So yeah,
That's so fast.
yeah, that's quick.
Yeah.
I think we're doing 290, 294. I think we can
Yep.
get down the end straight. So we're chuffing. We're
Like
going along.
MotoGP qualifying's about a 26, I think.
Yeah, but
Mate,
different kettle of fish. Yeah.
incredible. Yep.
Yeah. So then Sydney was probably the hardest one because that was such a low grip track, high deg.
Mm-hmm.
You need to drive like an aero car. You need to use aero. You can't just use a tire grip like I was doing.
Right.
So that's where Joey just shone, and that's where Jimmy also shone as well, because he'd driven the S5000 so much he knew exactly what the car was going to do.
And why is that at somewhere like that? Is it the undulation? Obviously, surface is one thing, but undulation.
Yeah.
What makes it?
I don't know. It was such a, for me it was so hard because obviously I had every single race back to back. So Trans Am was here, then I'd finish a race and I was on the podium every race. So I'd do the podium interview, then Dad was on a little moped, so I'd hop on the back of the moped, he'd drive me down the S5000, hop in that, go straight out. So I was having to swap straight away, driving styles. And throughout the year, I drove the S5000 the same as I drove Trans Am. I tried to make them as similar as possible, so it wasn't hard to swap.
Yep.
And that just didn't work Sydney. And honestly, I can't give you a reason why. The car just didn't like it at all. I kept finding we just had so much understeer in the start of the weekend, and we fixed that problem, and then it turned into snap oversteer, and I had nothing. So the car was just on edge the whole weekend. And I went on to Euros, which is a simulator upstairs at Sydney, and went for some live driver coaching. And mate said, how are you driving? How are you doing this? Like, it was just putrid, to be honest, for an open wheeler. And hopped into the S5000 after that and dropped a second in a bit. So it's crazy how it's just driving style like that. And
Seriously?
it's just understanding the open wheeler driving style. Like, if you have to brake, instead of braking a little bit, you're better off lifting off early, nice and smooth, then gradually bring it back on the throttle again.
Wow.
Where for me, coming out of Trans Am, full throttle, hit the brake, full throttle, and drive.
Chop
and
it.
I was and I was just making the car too nervous. So you got to think the under trays is the biggest downforce really of the S5000.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to keep that as flat as possible the whole time. If you make that move, then it will make so if you touch a brake, it'll make the rear lose all the grip. If you hit the accelerator, make the front lose grip. So it's
so you're best off keeping that balanced the whole time.
And that's the hardest thing. So you got to trick your brain to say, you've hit the limit, you're going as fast as you can, the car's starting to snap on you, and then you got to trick your brain to say, okay, there's another limit, I just got to drive like this. And you got to come into the corner and just think, okay, I'm just going to turn it in and hope for the best. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So it's,
You're saying the simulator helped there. Do you do much sim time?
I do now. after that one,
so it genuinely, for yourself, it helps.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it's more for, not really for if you're pushing for the last 10th.
Yep.
For me in a Trans Am, I don't do any sim work for that. It's just for the S5000 now. I just got to understand how to drive an open wheeler. Simulator, it's not great for learning how to drive. It's great for picking up the last little bit type thing. And your driving style, your imperfections. I think the best thing of it is it's just sort of, you can mimic your throttle trace that you want to do in the open wheeler in real life. So you just copy that and see what car it works in, and what car you make similar to it. It works. So you can I always try and set the car up, either oversteery, so I have to drive it around the oversteer and figure out how to do that.
Yep.
And I'll set up for understeer and figure out how to drive understeer and just try and make the car an absolute dog to drive to and it'd say to myself, okay, I need to do this in real life if that happens.
How close a lap time are you on the sim to what you'd be in real life?
Depends. You can really get it. You can get it really close.
You can?
S5000 is pretty hard because there's no proper built S5000 sim.
Right.
I know when I first started Trans Am, I could get some within 2/10 of real life, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And the S5000, I could probably get it within probably 5/10, but simulator's faster 5/10. So.
Yep.
Which probably is pretty realistic. You haven't got any risk factors, so you're pushing a little bit harder. So
yeah, that's true. Yep.
Yeah, so I don't know.
The walls don't hurt as much in your computer.
That's it. Yeah, it's only one button. You fix again.
You start it again.
Yeah.
What sim are you using?
I use heaps of different things.
Yeah.
So I've iRacing, Stato Corsa, R-Factor.
So you're across it all.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Lately, I've been doing a bit of BeamNG, which is actually, scarily enough, it actually is a good sim. So
wow.
Yeah, it's made for crashes, but it's pretty realistic. So
it's amazing how much like that, and you see it in driving styles, how much that's evolved.
Yeah.
Drivers.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a huge thing nowadays. Hey?
Exactly, and that's where it's so good for the next generation coming through. Like where you get the kids who are just sit in simulator all day, and they're quick.
Yep.
Because they just sit in simulator all day, but and the older school drivers, they have heaps of car feel, where, you know, us younger blokes, we don't have as much car feel, and that's where I've probably been lucky in doing paddock bashing and everything like that. I've got the car feel there. A lot of young blokes now just purely quick because they've done so much sim work, and ask them to set up a car in real life, they wouldn't be able to do it. So that's you got to be perfect across every level now in racing. You can't just be a really quick driver and the team sets it up around you. You need to have that basic car feel to set up a car and make it quick. And that's where Trans Am's so good as well, because they move around so much. I don't doubt if you put me and Cito in whatever race car you want, we could probably get a good setup within a couple of sessions. Once we get used to the car. So
because you've learnt through that.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, and we both work in our own car, me and Aaron. So
that must be a good thing.
Exactly, and it has to help because we know. I know now, if I want something to change, I know exactly what it is, and it helps the team as well, because they're not just, you know, it's pretty useless if you say I've got understeer on entry to a corner. There could be 10 different changes for that. Yep. Now we can say, okay, I need more toe in because I've got understeer on entry. Which is, you know, it's good to be able to say it's the engineer and yeah.
Is it something that GRM's traditionally done, isn't it, with their drivers?
Yeah.
They come into the workshop and actually work on the vehicles.
Exactly.
That's always happened, hasn't it?
Yeah. So, yeah, for the guys who, you know, you hear that have made a career for themselves, like Scotty, he worked there for a while as a fab.
Lee Holdsworth, I'm pretty sure did. Tander did.
Tanner did. Everyone has, really. Jimmy and Dylan and Moff has, Moff did back in the day, I think. So everyone's just sort of go in there and work in their own car, and it's because, you know, it's probably because they've set a benchmark in GRM. Now, you know, we're all competitive. You know, we all get along in GRM as drivers, but we also want to beat the other guy and be the number one in Garry and Barry's eyes, I guess. So you see, like, we all come in to work and sort of show off to the other drivers, saying, I'm working. Like, it's such a competition between us, but we're all good mates, so it's good fun. We're all pushing each other to make ourselves the best.
Weird environment.
Yeah, exactly. But
you know,
and everyone gets along so well, even the mechanics. It's just a big family. You know, I don't think I'm speaking out of school and saying it's probably not the best paying team in Australian motorsport, but it's probably the best team to be part of. You know, best environment. Obviously, I haven't been a part of many teams, but for me, it's been the best.
Traditionally, you hear that too. You know, across the board, like, it doesn't matter. If you're talking about 1997, 2007, or 2021, it's been a common theme with that team. Yeah.
So, and it all stems from the top. You know, Garry and Barry, they've always come in with a big smile on their face and running around and
love motorsport.
Yeah, that's it.
Genuinely,
they're all there just because they love motorsport, not to make money and not to make the best living that they could. They just love motorsport. So,
how'd you go with the media attention last year coming up to Bathurst, mate? You got there's a lot, obviously. How'd you go with it? Like, were you 17 at the time?
No, 18. So
you're
just
18?
turned 18.
Just turned 18.
Yeah, so...
that's a lot of pressure.
Yeah, the media was probably the easy part of it all.
Yeah.
Probably the whole fight for the super license was a hard bit. That was hard to wrap my head around. Garry and Barry helped me a lot, and that's also where Moff came in as well with helping. And yeah, it was just cool to have all that media attention. I knew in the back of my mind that even if it didn't happen, it's made me a career, and that's just how I had to think of it.
Yep.
I just had to take the positives out of it.
Yep.
It would have been easy to go out there and you know, swear my head off and get angry and fire up about it, but also wouldn't be where I am today if doing that. So Garry and Barry, when we first got told that super license was in trouble, Garry said, just switch off your phone and turn it off, and I think that was the best thing I've ever done, to be honest. I turned it off, and I turned it on for work when I had to, and that was about it, you know. So I haven't really, ever since then, I haven't really gone on my phone too much either. So the media and the off-track stuff is such a make or break for race car drivers nowadays. And I used to think, like back when you listen to drivers say, I don't pay attention to any media stuff anymore, like, you'd think, well, I mean, they're making articles about you when you want to know what they're saying, but now you sort of see why it's like that. So it's the media at the end of the day, they're trying to make a story. So you just got to keep that in mind and try not to fold, I guess.
Yep. And
keep your wits about you the whole time. And yeah, it was definitely a good learning curve to have that. Because, you know, if something else happens in my racing career where it's controversial or something like that, I know how to deal with it now.
Reset, the phone off.
Yeah, exactly. So I still still answered to as many as I could.
Yep.
Because I knew at the end of the day it's getting me publicity, and that's what I want. That's gets the sponsors out there, and it gets me out there further.
Especially if you handle it well.
Exactly.
And you did. You know, like if you're handling it poorly, it's a different story. But it wasn't like that.
Yeah. At the start, I was very worried because I was scared that going. I was going to say one word wrong or one sentence in a wrong way, then it would come across in all media outlets as this.
Yeah.
So that's where you have to be so careful. You have to just back yourself that you're not going to say anything wrong.
And one sentence.
Exactly.
Like we're sitting here today, we talk for an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
You could listen to the whole lot and go, okay, that guy's really good. But a lot of it's just this one sentence that could change everything.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And even with there's an article released after it. I just said, if I don't get to supercars this year, I probably won't come back. I won't be able to get it next year because I'm not going to change anything that I'm driving. And there was an article coming out saying Herne gives up on supercar dreams. I was like, oh, come on. And everyone's attacked me for that. I was like, yeah, there it is. That's the one article.
Yep. It's just a total twist on everything, eh?
Exactly. Twist on words. So, and to clarify, I definitely haven't given up my dream. I definitely still want to get to the Bathurst one day. And now I'm sort of changed my mindset. I've always wanted to get supercars, but now, I'd rather be part of Trans Am and S5000 and say, I built this category up from the ground, and I was part of it from when it started with 20 cars in Australia to where it's at 60 now, and becomes hopefully one day a premier category in Australia. But we'll just wait and see what happens. Obviously, I'm not against driving supercars. I'd love to. I've grown up loving them.
Yep.
But I think it'd be pretty cool one day to look back and say, I was part of that whole transformation.
Have you seen, if you watch and you spoke of viewer numbers and that, but the amount of people that are tuning into it and, turning across to it, it's pretty exciting.
It is big. And I think Lismore has been big with it. I'll walk up to the square and there'll always be one old bloke come up and say, oh, good race on the weekend.
Seriously?
And,
That's
loves
good.
it. So
yeah,
it is cool to have that and to finally have that.
sort of gratification.
I guess, yeah.
You've
exactly.
seen, yep.
Yeah, so because obviously I've grown up in Formula Ford. Racing Formula Ford, no one knew what that was, and Ta2, everyone who asked me what do you race, I'd say Ta2, and I'd have to explain it, show them different pictures and everything like that, and now I say I race Trans Am, and everyone would be like, oh really, and want to talk about it and ask me what car I'm in, and
it relates, doesn't it?
Exactly.
People need something to relate to.
Yeah,
like a Formula Ford doesn't look like anything that none of us drive.
Yeah, exactly. So and now we've got the new Mustang and Camaro and Challenger in it, and it's just cool. Yeah.
Hey, your car, now and past, best looking car. Hey?
Yeah, I've been pretty lucky with that. We've always had good liveries. The Valvoline Dodge you definitely can't go past. It's one of the best looking cars in the grid. Yeah, so Dodge is always. We always wanted Camaro. Me and Dad have always been holding blokes our whole life, but Dodge was the only car coming in to Australia at the time, so we could race the first round. I'm so glad it happened. It's been the best car I've ever driven. I'm falling in love with Dodge and Mopar. I drive a Jeep now just because Mopar and support the brand. So
straight up.
Yeah.
What is the Ta2 car? What is it? It's an LS3.
LS3 crate motor.
Yeah.
They're built by Howard Racing Enterprises over in America. So what they are is sort of common to a old NASCAR chassis before Car of the Future.
Right.
They're sort of just a bar car. If you tore it apart and put it beside a supercar chassis, there's obviously differences, but you wouldn't be able to tell which one's which. Just because race cars nowadays are just bar cars and with fiberglass panels over them. So
some that people don't understand either.
Exactly. Yeah. Everyone thinks that the Dodge I drive is a real Dodge. $300,000 car.
Dodge Demon.
Yeah. So no, but it's just fiberglass panels on a body on a chassis.
Yep.
So all chassis are the same. Ford, Chev, and Dodge are all the same. They're just different body panels.
Yep.
They've all been wind tunnel tested. They're all identical, so there's no advantages. Same spec racing. Everyone's got the same brakes, same engine, same tyres, everything like that. They're all identical, and they try and focus mainly on keeping costs down and making sure it's only the driver that's really making the difference between the car. We could probably, me and Aaron could probably hop into one of the 15th or 20th cars and still put it in top 5. So it's just good to have that series where it's so equal matched, and you have to push 110% out of your car to get a win.
That's a cool part of it, and it's like the stadium trucks. If you really want to, you can drive someone else's truck. I learned that the other week, and it's like That's perfect. That's what you want out of racing, you know,
Exactly.
where it's, you know, it's in here, how to set it up and everything, but at the back of it is still the driver.
Yeah.
And the LS3 is a pretty tough engine too.
Pretty tough,
Low cost.
Yeah.
You know.
So generally the last 3 seasons,
Yep.
and you know they're starting to get pushed really hard now, so they're starting to last a little bit less. But these cars, you know, they were made to do 220s around Bathurst, not 210s.
Yeah.
So they're just, and the Americans even, like, how when they talk to Peter Robinson and say, what lap times are they doing? Like, we had an American come out who just won a Ta2 championship over there, and he came over, raced Bathurst. I think he'd done a 220, and he was stoked with that lap time, and you know, walked around as if he was the biggest thing since sliced bread, and now we're doing 210s, and they can't believe it over there. So we've pushed it to such a limit where the cars, they're just insanely fast. You know,
Yep.
it wasn't too long ago supercars were doing 210s,
Definitely.
and worth a lot more money back then as well. So
What's your time? 2:11 what?
I got down to 210.8. Cito got to 210.5.
How's the 210 lap feel around Bathurst?
Not good.
Must be scary, eh?
Not good. Yeah, it's terrifying. I
Yep.
remember I came in from the race and I said to Cito, I was like, that was mental. And he's shaking his head as well. And that was the first time I've seen him red-faced and covered in sweat. So
I'm alive.
we were pushing each other pretty hard. And I was waiting for him to go on the fence, and I told him that. I said, I thought you were going on the fence so many times around the top, and he was waiting for me to go on the fence behind him. So we were just pushing each other so hard, and that's why it was so good to do. It's probably one of the most fun races I've had. Just in the fact that we came in and we were both full of adrenaline and you know, stoked that we just what we just done, and you know, we were racing at lap times that were a second faster than what Cito qualified with. So
It's huge, eh?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I can only imagine what 2 minutes 10 around that place would be like, especially in one of those cars. Still,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
as well.
Yeah, it's comparative in cars, and around the top, as I was saying before, from the cut in to just before the grate, we're actually faster than the supercar, where there's no aero. After that, once the aero kicks in, supercar has I say, every stretch of imagination. So
explain that for us, because we spoke of it before, but it basically, obviously, the aero for one thing, and then the tyre.
Tyre, yeah. So we run on a cross-ply Who's Your Tyre, which people don't actually. For people who don't understand, a cross-ply is different to what your road car runs on or supercar runs on. They run on a radial, which is steel belts through the tyre. Cross-ply is sort of like a bag tyre, so if you deflated it and put it off, if you let it go flat and you punched it, your hand will go through it. If you punched a radial, you'd probably break your hand.
Wow.
So they're very soft tyres. Once they get hot, they're just gel. You know, you can put your hand through it and reach the other side. So they're what they use in speedway and drag racing. So they're made to drive straight fast because they flex a lot. So they have a lot of surface area on the ground, but they're not really made to corner very well. So you get a lot of weird sensations when you drive a Trans Am for the first time. You'll turn it in and the car won't actually grip. So you'll turn initially, car won't grip until it gets over there, and then it'll grip because that's when the tyre's actually flexed on the rim.
So it's like understeer for a bit.
Well, it's just the car doesn't move. So it's
like
you're
a
waiting
block
for
of
the
cheese.
tyre to grab the rim to pull it.
Wow.
So it's a crazy feeling. So you actually see a lot of blokes who come in from supercars. James Moffat's coming into it now, so it'll be interesting to see how he adapts to the tyres. They can't get their head around it because they're so used to so much grip, and the car just reacting straight away. When you have a tyre that doesn't react straight away and doesn't give you much feedback, it is very hard to adjust to, and that's probably where me and Cito have an advantage. We can push that last 10th out of it, where, you know, the guys might take a while to get up to that point. But you get Owen Kelly, who's raced in America, raced NASCAR, who filled in for Ambrose a few times over there. He's come in and he's been quick straight away. So it's an art to drive on a bag tyre. And, you know, it's easy to go from bag tyre to a radial, but it's probably hard to go the other way around. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Feel.
Yeah.
So every race, you changing tyres every race?
Every race meeting. So we get 5 tyres for every race meeting.
Yeah.
So 4 obviously go straight on the car. Then you got 1 spare in case you get a puncture or to run on the front or rear during the weekend. So
That caught you out at one event, didn't it? I think. From memory.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't remember which track it was though. Yeah, we've been struggling pretty hard this year. Start of weekend, so we're always. I'm driving my car 110%. Probably Cito's 95%.
Yep.
Which obviously the tyres don't like. The tyres like to be driven at 95 or 100%, not over that mark. So
yep.
Yeah, it is a tyre management game. If I can get in front of Cito, I know I can, you know, save a little bit of tyres and you know, without the heat soak, it doesn't ruin them as much. Hoosier is a bit weird. They don't go off wear. They go off heat. Heat soaks to go through them.
Heat cycles.
Heat cycles, yeah,
Yep.
sorry, that's the word. Yeah, so after each race, obviously that's one heat cycle. So after one heat cycle, tyres pretty well, mush. And they obviously get worse as time goes on, but much slower than what they do from brand new. So from brand new, you got qualifying, and start of the race, you'll be half as quick. Then after that, you'll start to fall off the edge. So once they get a big heat cycle through them, they're pretty rooted. So yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, it's different.
Compared to other obviously racing tyres.
Yeah.
Do you have warmers? No warmers.
So no warmers. No, you're not allowed anything in the cars apart from just bare minimum, really. So they've got air jack holders in them for the Asian cars, because Ta2 Asia and Ta2 Australia are identical.
Okay.
So they got air jack holders, but not allowed to run them, just because keep cost down. But now they're actually ripping them off with the Australian cars, and Australia is so big now in their production line in America that they're just making an Australian spec car now.
Really?
So, which is it's pretty cool to see that. So yeah.
So that car you're talking about for James just before.
Yep.
Is that the one that's on auto action at the moment?
Yeah, the Moffat Mustang. Yeah.
That looks pretty cool.
Yeah, no, it is. It will be a nice car, and it's hard really to make a poor looking Trans Am, to be honest.
True.
They're such a tough looking car. They look like a race car sitting there. And to have a big name like Moff come into it, I can't wait. It will be good to see him drive. He's pretty happy, to be honest. He's probably the happiest I've seen him since I've known him. To drive the Trans Am. He had a test day at Winton when I was down there last Wednesday, and he was just happy as Larry. He looked like a fat kid in a candy shop. He was just loving life. So
how has the year been? Like you were saying before, you're not flying anywhere. You're driving basically between. You've had a good year.
Busy, it's been good though. I've learned a lot, obviously, and doing the two cars, it's been a big physical tax on me. After the Tasmania rounds, we came back home and I was cooked for a week and just bedridden because I was absolutely rooted from doing 2 weeks straight back to back in both cars. So obviously I've had to step up my fitness. So I've been training every single day and doing at least 2 hours a day and trying to get 1,300, 1,400 calories a day. I've just burned during exercise. So it's been big doing that, and as well as that, having to travel around to drop cars off and do different things. I've driven to Melbourne twice so far and back home, and flown down there once and back. So it's been a lot of travelling this year.
Yep.
Sydney, I go down there every once in a while to work for Fast Track for Outrace and do a bit of driver coaching just to keep seat time. And then I work in Brisbane 2 days a week, and then work at home 3 days a week. So enough to keep me busy and have a bit of fun. So yeah.
So is that a goal? 1,300 calories output a day?
Yeah.
Active calories.
Least, yeah. So try and make sure that I can do that, because that's in a race weekend. I think in 3 hours at Sydney I burnt 2,000 calories straight up. So which is pretty big. So
serious?
Yeah, to burn 1,300 in a day, I'm not feeling as much now, but I did feel it at the start.
Yeah.
I was absolutely rooted, but yeah, Sydney was a big one. Yeah, I was sore for a while after that.
So what was that? That was obviously doing the 2 classes.
2 classes. So I had
2,000 active calories.
Yeah. So I had Trans Am first up, and I was at like 10. Straight after that, I had S5000.
Yeah.
One category in between, which was a 20-minute out of the car break.
Yeah.
And then back in Trans Am, back straight in the S5000, and I was done. So yeah. So I think I had an average heart rate of 155 for the 3 hours.
Yeah.
My racing heart rate's 39, so it's pretty up there, and peaked out at 191 in the S5000 in the last race. So it's physically taxing the S5000.
Do you know where the peak was? Was there a moment? Was there or just a consistent?
I think it was just mainly after probably the halfway mark is where I start to feel like, you feel one part of your body go sore. Like you say, your core is generally the thing that goes first in the S5000, then you're mentally drained and you think, oh, I'm in trouble here. Because in racing, you can't stop, obviously. If you pull off the side of the road, you're going to lose.
Yeah. You just got to keep pushing.
Exactly. Once you start to feel sore, you just have to keep going. It's not like rugby or something like that where you can just, take a bit of a breather and go again.
Yep.
You have to just keep pushing, and once you get sore, there's no coming back from it. So, I was in bed at 7 that night and woke up at 6 the next day, and ready to go again. So,
mate, that's huge.
Yeah.
What are you tracking that? Whether you got a Garmin watch or something?
Just Apple Watch. So,
Apple Watch. Yep.
Yeah, just cruise along and try and do that a day. It's just a goal to get me through, and helps keep fit, and helps work, make it easier.
I just can't believe that 2,000 in that period of time.
Yeah, exactly. It was crazy. So Yeah, and you know, I was never a fitness guru until probably Bathurst, to be honest. Bathurst, once the Bathurst scene came, I was like, okay, I know I need to improve a little bit now and work if we're going to make a 1,000k race, and start training every day then. And then Bathurst obviously didn't happen. I just thought, well, stuff I've already done it, so may as well just keep going with it, and kept going since there. So
what sort of training you're doing? Like, I've been with you on obviously filming one of your training sessions. Are you still doing sort of similar setup?
Yeah,
or what
still the same. Yep. A lot of body weight. Now I'm actually trying to start getting stronger, so I'm doing weights. Yep. I was fit, but I was very weak, to be honest. So,
really?
Yeah. Yep. So as soon as I incorporated weight into my workouts, I was just toast. So yeah, now I'm starting to muck around a bit more weight and stuff like that. And Al and Brad from Lisbon Infrared Sauna, they've sponsored me, and I go in a sauna for an hour every day, and you know, try and keep lean. And and it's been such a, I don't know, it's I'm probably doing more than I have to. But I want to get to the point of fitness where, you know, I can hop into an Indy car tomorrow and do an Indy 500 race and survive it, really. So it's
have redundancy, like have excess fitness for it. Yep.
So, and if I didn't have that mindset last year, I wouldn't have been able to do what I've done this year. That's S5000 Trans Am. It's definitely lucky that I kept at it rather than stopping.
Because the S5000 must be so taxing, even compared to the Ta2.
Yeah, because they're made for 5 foot tall guys, and I'm 6'2", so you know, if I stand behind anyone else in the S5000 grid, they're about up to my shoulder, and like little kids running around. So hopping into a S5000, they're made for a small bloke, so the steering wheel's nice and close, but I can only use my forearms and my elbows to turn.
Wow. Where
you get the smaller guys, they can use the whole arm, so it's everyone's in the same boat, I guess, so you just have to put up with it, but yeah, it's
so they're able to use bigger muscles like bicep muscles and stuff, exactly, whereas yours are just coming through.
So it's they're definitely a physical car as well, and the G forces we pull, like we peak out at 4 Gs at Phillip Island around the last corner, and you feel it, you know, like your next fighting against it, and the helmet feels about 10 kilos heavier than what it actually is, and it's cool though. I definitely wouldn't trade it up for anything else in the world.
That a class here to stay, you reckon?
Well, Garry and Barry's behind it, so I'd say so.
Yep.
Garry and Barry, once you get to know them, you understand that they're not there to kick tyres for a year or two and get the name in the spotlight. They're not about that. They, you know, obviously they like to have the recognition, everyone does, but they're there to make racing great again, to pinch that line. But yeah, no, they work so hard at it. They've put so much finance behind it and everything like that. I know from a fact, of outsider looking in, that they're not there to muck around. Yep. They're there to make S5000 and TCR and Trans Am and the RRG group one of the biggest things in Australia. And they're not there to get money. As I said before, they're there for the fan. And if you watch Gary's farewell to supercars, when he done an interview saying he won't be coming back in 2020, he talked through the whole thing, and as soon as he got to the punters, he got into tears, which was pretty. It sounds bad, but cool to see. They cared so much about the punters. The punters were the biggest thing for him. Yep. And you always, whenever you see Garry at the track, you know, he runs around like a little security camera watching you. But he's so big on all the fans and everything like that, and that's probably where I've been very lucky as well with Dad. He's always been big with fans back in Lismore Speedway. He always had posters, he always had shirts, he always had everything that every kid would want. Yep. And so he's passed that down to me on, you know, I always have posters there for kids, and I'll always, you know, take 5 minutes out of my day to go say good day to anyone. And yeah, it's been pretty cool. You know, I've had a bloke at Bathurst travel all the way down from Lismore, come watch me race just once, and travel back home, and yeah, that was cool to see. And you know, even kids from my old school come down to Bathurst and watch. So it was cool to actually get there, because, you know, last year I was only a fan running around trying to get autographs and everything like that. So to now be the one that they're trying to, you know, get autographs off, it's different.
I can't believe you're 18. Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yeah, you wouldn't probably realize it because you're in it, but the stuff that you've done, you've achieved so far, and you're into, it's such an achievement, mate.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, as I've said millions of times, and it sounds cliche, but you do pinch yourself every once in a while. So shit, like with this, you know, like last year, was it 2019 actually? Sorry, last year wasn't really a year. 2019, I was at Newcastle Supercars, and and we went there with Volvo trucks and with GRM.
Yep.
And so actually that's probably a key aspect I missed before was I met Garry and Barry there. So Garry and Barry already knew Dad beforehand, and they recognised him because of his mullet. His mullet's probably been the biggest tool that, has got
marketing tool.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, so I might start having to grow one myself, but
I think it works.
Yeah, yeah. So we met them there, and I remember I was getting food at the corporate suite, so we were in there with Volvo trucks, and James and Richie were up on top, and they were talking to everyone and had 2 big queues behind them, signing posters and everything like that, and I was just there like, well, it'd be nice to get a poster, but I'll just have my lunch, and I was just watching them at what they were doing, and it's for me, I knew at that moment I wanted to do that. I'm not there for the glitz and glamour of it, but it's definitely nice to be appreciated and to do that stuff, I guess. And I've always wanted to. I've always grown up following racing. I've always watched it on TV, and I've always idolized these guys as heroes. So to think that I'm racing against some of these guys is pretty cool.
Exactly. Yeah. You've summed it up like 100% perfect, especially in such a short time. From Newcastle 2019 to a blank year to now to being part of it.
Exactly. So if someone told me that I was going to be James Golding's teammate at 2019 Newcastle, I would have not going to happen.
Full-time supercar driver.
Yeah, exactly. So it's cool to be mixing up them guys, and it's definitely I've been very lucky in everything I've had in life, and I've just got to keep at it and make sure I don't get a big head and make sure I don't burn it all up on myself. So
100%.
Yeah.
You an IndyCar fan?
I have been now. I've always hated it because I've always been scared of seeing a fatal crash. Because I always thought it was dangerous as. I watched Scotty's first race last year, and that was awesome. Loved it.
It's incredible.
Hey? Yeah, it's great racing for an open wheeler. They can follow each other, and it's awesome racing. And I haven't met Scotty personally myself, but you hear all the stories about him because he's come from GRM, and to think that he was the guy before me who Garry picked up and brought through, it's pretty cool to think, one day I could, if I push hard enough and get my name out there and do enough good performances, I can probably get there one day and push it. So he's sort of been a big motivator for me. I've got a lot of respect for him because you hear, when you're outside the game, you don't actually hear what's going on behind the scenes and all the work and all the efforts. He's been one. You have to sort of analyse it when you're watching it. You can see in 2020 when he came back to supercars, he was fit. He lost a lot of all of his chubbiness because he was a bit of a chubby bloke, but he just got fit. I don't know if he knew about IndyCar at that time or what he did, but you could tell that he just came back more dedicated than what he was before, and he just had that rekindling, and you see it with Lewis Hamilton as well. When you analyse him, he's also probably one of the fittest drivers on that grid, and that's why he's been dominated for so long. You see the guys who dominate, they get to the top and they keep training and trying to work harder. And the guys who get to the top once and fade away are the ones who, get to the top, think, oh, yeah, okay, I'm already there.
Ego kicks in.
Yeah, I can just relax now.
Yep.
And then they get swamped by someone who's working harder. So
these people that become great, it's no accident.
Exactly.
It's not luck. It's a little bit luck sometimes comes in the way.
Yeah.
But it's just work.
Exactly. And there's no shortcuts to it. So it doesn't matter what you do either. As long as you work hard enough, you'll get there. And watching my dad, he's torn to bits really. Like his knees are both gone, his shoulder was screwed, his back's obviously been done, and he's worked like a 3 lifetimes in one lifetime, and he's absolutely rooted. And I've always had the mindset watching him work hard when you're younger, you don't have to work when you're older. So just try and make something of myself in the next couple of years in racing. If that doesn't work out, then try and make a business, something like that, and see. You always got to have a backup plan is what I've been told, so racing's my plan A, and starting something my own business is plan B.
What would you do? Don't let a cat out of a bag if that's the case, but what would you do?
Probably something mechanical and racing, engineer most likely.
Yep. You good with that side of it?
Yeah, well, in practical, I'm not really a theory kid.
Yep.
I hate doing theory, so I hated school.
Hands on though.
Hands on, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I hated. Yeah, so school I was always good at until you had to study for it. Then I went backwards. Yeah, when you actually had to work, I hated it. But yeah, then engineering, I love it. I love just making the car go that last little bit, and it's something you can never have a 100% fast race car. You can have 99.9%, but you can never get that last 0.1.
Nothing's a perfect car,
Exactly.
is it?
So, and that's why it's so addictive, I guess. You know, you get to it's sort of like a drug addiction, really. You know, you get that first high and you become addicted, and all you want to do is chase that high again and get to it. So, yeah, it's all I want to do is really achieve a good result again and win. You know, there's no better feeling than winning.
What's been the closest day to a perfect race car? Car, kart, whatever it may be. Have you had one where you just get in and the setup, everything just feels 99% at least?
Probably Bathurst Friday practice, so then hopped out of the car and saw Cedo done 210 and car was shit all of a sudden. So,
but did. When you're in it, you just felt...
Oh, you always feel like you got a great car, and then you have someone come and push you a bit further, and you realise it's not perfect.
It's not in the box yet.
Yeah, so it's... For me, I don't think I've had a perfect car yet, and that's why it's so addicting. You know, I have to... Me, Cam Fisher and Frank and Dad and all the Dream Racing crew have just been working so hard to get that Trans Am cracking. And same with Timmy and me in a GRM car. We've in the S5000, you know, we definitely have not got that cracking yet. So there's definitely a lot more potential in that thing. Probably both from me and the car itself.
Yep.
But yeah, look, I think it's such a... Yeah, you always come in from a race and you never feel like you're giving 100%. I at least don't. I come in from a race and say, yeah, done a good job then, but there was always this mistake here, and I think that's why I've learnt so much so quickly. In racing, I'm always one to go back through and re-watch races and say, look, and own up to my mistakes is the biggest thing you have to learn as a driver. I was always one to, you know, blame the car or blame something else if I drove off. And then you re-watch any footage and see, no, okay, I've done this, that's why I went off. So race 2 at Bathurst was definitely one where I was not very happy watching that, where I made one bad gear change and the rear locked up and went straight off. But the car was so on edge, you know, I had to just make sure everything was perfect to stay in front of Aaron.
Yep.
And yeah, when you're on edge, one little mistake is turned into one massive mistake. So, and I've just got to make sure I don't make those little mistakes until we get the car to Aaron's pace where I can drive it back at 95% and you know, stay in front of him at 95%.
Eliminate those.
Exactly, yeah.
Being having in the chance to make those mistakes, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, the whole year in Trans Am's been risk versus reward.
Yep.
Probably Tasmania actually was where the car was actually set up really well, but it was only the last race. So we've struggled heaps at the start of the weekend. We've always been slow at the start. But towards the end of the weekend, we come back like a steam train and bite our way through to the front. So, yeah.
Simmons Plain's a hard place to drive.
Very, very hard on brakes. Not hard to be fast. Hard to get the last bit out of it.
Yep.
Probably the same with all motorsport, really. But yeah, look, it was the last race. I remember it was just crazy. I came in, I knew I had to get past Owen, and I got in front of Owen, and then once I got in front of him, my brakes started to go to the floor. I was like, oh, here we go. We're on for a big run here. And I knew Aaron was behind me the whole race, and we have the same brakes. The brakes are all controlled to the car, so I knew that he was going to start struggling soon. So I pulled a little bit of a gap on him and maintained it. And then I've come into the last lap, second last corner, sorry, and the brake's gone to the floor. And I was like, oh, here we go. We're in trouble here. So I went straight back to second gear, just use the engine to slow it down. And then coming onto the straight, I've had understeer and I've gone to use the brake again to get the way into the front, make a turn, and it's just no brake pedal, so I've gone straight off it, coming onto the straight and finish on the dirt. So, But no, it's cool, and that was probably the race where I thought the car was quick, but yeah, it was just hard on brakes, Simmons Plains, so we felt it in the last few laps.
Next round's Morgan Park. Yep. How will that be? Good.
We raced there 2019, second round, so I think that was probably around April, something like that. So it was a bit hotter back then than what it will be.
Should be cold up there.
Month, yeah, cold during the morning, hot during the day.
Yep.
And we got our first win there, which is good. So it's a bit of a track where you can't pass. So we're just qualifying is going to be important. And now we've got so many big names: Tim Brook, Moff, Owen Kelly, Cedo. It's going to be, if I can't qualify in at least first, second, or third, then I'm in trouble for the weekend.
Sort of your position's determined, isn't it?
Exactly.
Before you get there.
Yeah, and we've always struggled with qualifying. I was going through driver database the other day, which is, shows you all your stats from your career, and I think I've got 180 races and 8 poles, which is not good. So, but yeah, it's qualifying's definitely something we've got to work on, both myself and the team as a car package.
Yep.
But yeah, Morgan Park would definitely be one that's interesting. And, you know, if I win the next race, me and Cito are tied on points again, and it will just be a dogfight on who wins the most races to the end of the year, because they've finished on podium every race so far.
Where does it go from there? Morgan Park? June?
Sandown is
the last round. Yep.
Yeah, it's September, and that's also the first round of S5000. So my goal for Morgan Park is get the championship lead, or at least tie with Cito coming into Sandown, take the pressure off.
Yep.
Because double duties doesn't help, so it's I can't focus 110% on the Trans Am, because I've got the S5000 now I've got to focus on as well. So yeah, I'm gonna have to pull my skirt up for Morgan Park and give it a crack. So yeah.
Does having the experience of Garry and Barry, do they mentally help you with things? Like, do they, slow things down? Like, obviously, turn your phone off. That was a simple one.
Yeah.
But they help you with a lot of other stuff like that.
Yeah, it's been pretty cool. Like this year, I've lived down in Melbourne more than I have really at home.
Yep.
It's probably been half and half so far this year.
Mm-hmm.
And Barry and his family sort of turned into my Melbourne family. Bit cliche to say that, but they have. I've been staying with them a lot, and Garry and Barry and Moff, they've all been there for me and to help me. And I had a meeting with Barry and Garry, just check in, make sure everything's going all right. And Gary's he's like a wise old monk, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
I think that's the word.
Motorsport monk.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, he just everything that comes out of his mouth, he got to write down. So it's just words of wisdom, really.
Wow.
So probably not pumping up his tyres too much there, but no well. Yeah, so it's good to talk to them guys, and they've been through it all before. And Garry, he's sort of judge in motorsport in Australia at least. The last guy he put through is probably the right guess for Scotty.
Yep.
He's definitely picked the right guy with that one. So, and I just got to try and live up to expectations and make sure I can try and be next Scotty. But in saying that as well, I've got to take the pressure off. I had a meeting with Moff down in Melbourne as well, and he's sort of been the big brother of the whole operation, I guess, and coaching me through it all. And he's told me a few things that I need to just take pressure off myself and just enjoy it. Because he drew a lot of similarities between me and him from when he was my age. He was a bit fiery and got into it and had the passion, but he's always quick, but he just wanted to win all the time. So and sometimes that doesn't help. So sometimes he's got to ride the bar with the good and cop it. And he's definitely been great for me in that. And I'm happy with the situation I'm in at the moment. I've got that support network behind me to catch me if anything goes wrong. And they're going to help me through thick and thin. And I know they got my back. So as long as I'm with GRM, I know I'm pretty safe.
Yep.
Just got to make sure I don't burn any bridges and can just keep with them for as long as possible.
Keep working.
Yeah, exactly.
You driven a TCR yet?
No, I haven't. We've joked about it a few times to do the trifecta, run 3 categories in one weekend. So
you have to burn like 2,000 calories a day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I wouldn't say no to it. I'd give it a crack.
They look like a bit of fun.
Yeah, exactly. They're just a big go-kart, really, is what Moff's described it to me as.
Is that right? Yep.
Yeah. So, and they're loose as under brakes in the start of the races because the rears you can't get any temp. So obviously with rears you can't turn them.
Yep.
So fronts, when we're warming up tyres, we turn steering wheel and warms them up and do a few burnouts to get the temperature to the rears. But the TCRs can't do burnouts in the rears, so they're just sitting there and just like a shopping trolley, really.
Just want to keep coming around.
Yeah, exactly. The rears can just do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So yeah, it'd be definitely something I wouldn't say no to. But I wouldn't say no to driving a Hyundai XL, to be honest. So as long as I'm driving,
I just want to drive some.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, that'll be interesting. So we'll just see what plays out in the future.
Awesome, mate. Where can people find you online?
So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, pretty well everywhere. So
you've marketed yourself. You're everywhere, so you're all the platforms.
Trying to, yeah. It's social media is something I've definitely got to work on in the future. I haven't really got time to muck around with that, so I'm trying to do it. But yeah, I don't know. My life's not that interesting, so.
It is. Thanks, mate.
Thanks,
genuinely appreciate everything that you're achieving, and we've worked together for a few years since you were a 16-year-old kid, basically.
Yeah.
But you've never been a kid. You've been a genuine adult that has a fantastic conversation each time, and appreciate everything you do, mate. So well done.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having me, mate.
No worries.
Thank you. Beautiful. Appreciate it.